Well, I'm alarmed that this is up at all, really, because, I mean, Indigenous welfare became a big issue this year when violence on the streets of Alice Springs got out of hand earlier this year. Now, here's a line from a report that was rushed out before Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited Alice Springs in February. It said, Aboriginal people face disproportionate disadvantage at every level of our society. Every level, Gary, as you said earlier, it's only 20% of Indigenous people who need to be rescued from disadvantage, and I don't think the Voice is even going to help them anyway.
No, this is all about, it's an ideology of groupthink. It's identity politics. It says, if you're Aboriginal, you must think this way, you must be with us, and we can't solve any problem unless we solve the problem with all of us. Well, I'm sorry, that's a recipe for death. You just leave out the last group who are struggling to find how the heck this society works. And the only thing that they understand is if you complain to the white man, they'll give you more stuff. But in doing so, it's been happening for 2 generations, you become radically disabled. There is nothing we won't do for them, and therefore there's nothing they can do for themselves. Now, that's not the track that Pearson and Langton took, though. These are brilliant people who got up and out, moved on. Same with Jacinta Price, Warren Mundine, and lots of my Aboriginal friends. They found, if you like, a trick to that universal culture that tells you how to operate in this modern world. Now, we've been cruel to not teach that same trick, our culture, if you like, to the last 20%. And it's Aboriginal leaders themselves who prevented that knowledge. That's the appalling thing. And these 24 professionals, that's what they'll be, professional CEOs of Aboriginal patrol organisations will get to Canberra and they'll just keep bashing away, asking more and more and more and more from the taxpayer so they can control more services, which will still keep 20%.
Yeah, appalling is the right word for it, Gary. I couldn't agree more. What did you make of the Prime Minister getting emotional about it today? It wasn't very edifying, was it?
It wasn't. It does show you that the man is fragile when he gets onto these issues. He wasn't weeping when he locked us in on the nuclear submarines, thank goodness. But when it comes to this, I think you've got to say, Albanese, you're still that 18-year-old kid who joined the left of the Labor Party, whatever it was, 40-something years ago. This is not mature behaviour. This is not a mature proposition. I'm not saying you can't get emotional about this issue. I get very emotional about it. I tend to get a little bit angry too at what's being done here. Albanese knows that this is a political move. Brett Walker, the great Silk, has wiped it all, has revealed everything that says it's politics.
Yeah.
It's about.
It is. And it's emotional politics, Gary. That's, he got emotional because it was an emotional proposition. It's got nothing to do with helping people's lives. Yeah. But let's move on to Opposition Leader Peter Dutton. He's still prevaricating. Shouldn't he just come out and say, sorry, this idea is stupid, we're not backing it?
I think he should. Again, timing, he might want to wait till after the Aston by-election, because often you don't want to disturb things, I know, at a critical moment. But the day after the Aston by-election, which is only in a week or so, you must come out and say no to this proposition. We now know the proposition. We know the lack of details because there are just these general principles now. Professor Greg Craven, who's possibly the architect of a lot of this nonsense, with great respect, he knows it's gone way over the top, too far. He's in a very dark place now. He's been on a radio show this morning saying this is terrible, this is worse than I could ever have conceived, although he's still saying he's hanging in there and hopefully he's hoping for some amendments on the way through. So perhaps Peter Dutton is waiting for, and probably in this sense, he's got to wait for the parliamentary debate and then he can make a formal position. But I can tell you, nearly every National Party member and nearly every Liberal is a dead set no.